to another free agency waiver wire advice TLT run through potty and episode. Been away camping all weekend. I'm been off the grid, so I did my best to get through some games and some replays to try and get a feel for the footy on the weekend. Usually I've got my finger on the pulse, so yeah, I'm a little bit out of it, both in energy and in footy sort of, I guess, acute awareness of the ins and outs like I usually am, and I'm enjoying some time off work, so that's helped as well. So I'm going to blast through this TLT, guys, due to the bye rounds, and there's a lot of leagues that may not play or play all different sort of setups. For instance, my league, we play a top 6 scores count. We have 11 starters, so I figured that's just about in the balance there, sort of just over half of your roster, which is pretty manageable and creates a bit of strategy and a few other things for our league. And I think it worked really well last year. Really excited. I think you should be wanting to play bye rounds so you have something to enjoy and do and add some strategy layers. If you play a really weird setup with tiny benches or something, then maybe it's not ideal. I guess my whole principle, my whole premise I've been mentioning in our community when it comes to league settings, which I'll run through next year in the preseason in depth, is I don't want my league and the players in my league to be punished by having to drop people they drafted due to injuries and HIAs and buys and all the things that they can't really control. So due to my league and the way I do things, putting such a big emphasis on draft day and the draft weekend away, we go to the coast, we do a massive auction draft. It's a huge thing. So I want, like, if you go out of your way strategically to pay for, an expensive couple of players and everyone bids you up on those names or whatever happens, you shouldn't have to at any point drop those players. That just doesn't make sense. If you have to drop your fringe players that you paid $1 to $5 for, that's fine. But you shouldn't have to drop your guns. That doesn't make sense. And I think the way the league's going, look at this year, look at the amount of injuries. I see people with 4 people benches in the Discord community that are all injured. And if they wanted to compete, they might have to consider dropping someone that's out for an extended period of time. I just don't think that aligns with the point of playing draft, right? Draft is different to classic because classic, you have all the ability in the world to claw back your team in draft. If you get it wrong in those top 3, 4, 5, 6 picks, that's your season, and you got to do better, and you got to come back next year and prep better and make better decisions under pressure in a draft. So that's my rant done, just to kick off. Little bit of a tangent. I just think that the playing the buys really works in my league, and I encourage you guys to play it in your leagues next year if you don't already. And yeah, so let's kick off. Just jump into the share screen. So first game, Clint Gutherson returns for the Eels. It's Eels v Sharks, by the way. Gutho returns, which is really disappointing. Look, I panicked last week and I wavered for Blaze Talangi, who I had dropped for Paul Alamotti because he was the only person. Again, I'm rattled with injuries. I didn't have many people to drop. So when I saw Paul Alamotti, I saw the Taylor May news and I jumped on Paul Alamotti because Panthers names are just so valuable in draft and in fantasy and SuperCoach. So I ended up trading Alamotti that week, so it paid off because it bolstered my team, but I lost Talangi, and I couldn't bear the thought of Talangi getting the fullback spot after what we've seen from him. 3 games with like 85 plus scores. Like, the kid is a gun. If he got named there and I didn't have him after dropping him, I just think that would have sent me absolutely off the deep end. Like, I would have gone off the rails because I just think he's such a gun. I got onto him early, so I went back in and dipped in and burnt that waiver pick. It's looking stupid now because he's not at fullback, and it's looking stupid because I don't have a high waiver in a week where there's a few interesting bits and pieces going on, and I'll touch on those later, but this is an interesting waiver week, and again, the strategy behind waivers and free agency and gambles through Origin and all this sort of stuff. Do you need wins? Do you need a hold? It all comes into play, and this is why we love draft, and this is why we consume draft content, because I'll have a few things to say, someone else will have a few things to say, whereas if you play Classic, there's thousands of people saying similar stuff, whereas draft, it comes so much down to your specific situation. Where are you in the ladder? Are you fighting for a top 6 to make finals, or a top 8 if you run that system, which you shouldn't if it's a 10-team league? Whatever it may be, there's so much like specificity related to the strategy that it's just so awesome to have a community like ours in the Discord, because you can speak to like-minded people who all have awesome inputs. Like I'm the one here in front of the camera doing it, but there's guys in the Discord that think about SuperCoach probably just as much as I do, and you got to take it with a grain of salt. Everyone has different leagues, and some people are just clearly dominating their league, and the next thing they need is a real challenge. And there's other people that focus more on their favorite team. So they've got really interesting insights into how they think rotations will work. So yeah, if you're a passionate draft player, which if you're listening to this, you would be, because this is a really new content stream of what I'm doing here. But yeah, that's what it's all about, guys. So I'll crack on with the teams. Unfortunately, yeah, Talangi goes to the interchange at 14. Really weird. Don't get how that works. Is that just coverage with Moses's foot and Gutho's knee? Like, I don't know what goes on here. Does like Talangi at 14? I don't quite get it. Is he just? I mean, is there a world Brendan Hands goes off and like what Gutho goes to hooker? Like I don't. Or Talangi, they want Talangi using his speed out of hooker for 20 minutes. Like it's really weird. Just keep an eye on that. I don't know what's going on. And I didn't see the game, so did Lussick get a HIA? Let me know in the comments or whatever if I'm completely off the mark there, but it's weird to me. The other big name here is Bryce Cartwright retains the edge spot. Now, Madison is in the reserves. I don't know what's going on with him. It's a bit chaotic. Why is Joe Offer playing lock? Like, that's not a thing. Is Lane going to go to lock? Like, is Talangi? That's not going to work. Like, what's going on here, mate? This is super weird. I don't get this, but if I'm on waivers, I've got Cartwright pretty high. He's just an upside bet. We saw what he did last year. If you're in the mood, get spicy and throw a waiver in for Cardi, because if it pays off, you'll get that guy that had that incredible run to end the year last year. It was like, yeah, I think it was like 6 games and 5 of them were like over 70 or something. Don't quote me, but it was something crazy. I posted it the other day. So love Cartwright as a waiver if you're needy in 2RFs, and just know it's got a bit of risk attached, but that's the point of waivers at this point in the season. You're playing that gamble that you've got Cardi as a high level 2RF2 for the rest of the season. If he holds that spot, like he's going to have games of 110 and and many games above 60. And he had solid base last year. I don't think the work rate's quite there, but with Moses back, it bodes really well for Cardi. So get on him. For the Sharks, Trindle is a great plug and play. Like if you're just needy in 5'8" this weekend, I get that totally. Nothing else really jumps out at me from the Sharks. They're pretty stock standard. Jack Williams will probably do a job at 2RF playing lock, but Talakai will also come on there. So yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. Sharks are going to shark. But it'd be interesting how they go without Hines there. Atkinson, yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Moving on though, if this will let me. Next game, it is the Bulldogs versus the Knights. Nothing really too crazy here, except that Jacob Preston obviously wins that spot, and I assume he plays 80 there for Billy Kickow. Great for Preston owners who he was trending down. The minutes were weird. Why Jamin Salmon starts over Jacob Preston? I'll never know, but whatever. Just weird. The bench doesn't work for Kurt Mann playing extended minutes. I love Josh Curran's work rate in the second half of the game the other night. Bronson Cherry is a waiver for me just to be part of this team. The Dogs look like they're running pretty slick. Carraz owners have to put up with him being in the centres, which is frustrating, but we love to see Toby Sexton name. I've got him as a really high waiver. Halfback staunch. Sexton's a good player. Definitely a good SuperCoach player. I think there was a solid run last year of him getting like a try assist in pretty much every start at least, that's what you want from a waiver wire halfback, a guy like a Jock Madden or Toby Sexton that's going to at worst get you 35 and has the upside to go more, but they've got that attacking stat pretty much per game in them. Over on the Knights side, a good plug and play is your Jack Cogger this weekend just to do a job at halfback. The Kai Pearce, Paul, Dylan Lucas, Tyson Frizzell situation, does it crystallize here? Is Tyson Frizzell a middle guy just while the hamstring's still at risk? Or is he now a middle guy because Adam O'Brien likes developing these young guys and he feels confident they can do a job? Like, I don't know. And as a Kai Pearce, Paul owner, I mean, I'm going to play him this week. Like, it's no dramas in this shorter sort of like matchup week with the buys. But yeah, the headache, well, at least the stress continues because is like what happens with Kai Pearce-Paul's minutes. I think Dylan Lucas is the guy to be more confident in, but yeah, it remains to be seen, and I'm just hoping that Frizzell plays in the middle, and Kai Pearce-Paul goes back to playing 80 and giving us that strong base. He has a really nice base there, so yeah, a little bit sketchy for me. I think other people are more optimistic, and good on you if you are. I'm a little bit unsure. David Armstrong remains an awesome play in your CT dubs as a fullback. Next game is Panthers v Dragons. Dragons is an absolute mess, so fire up your Panthers, guys. Obviously, Jacob Little, though, there's no bench hooker. I think Jacob Little is an awesome pickup if you're in a deep league and he got dropped at any point. He played 80, shredded. He's obviously got risk attached, but at this point in the season, you're just taking sort of any sort of hooker you can get. Just running some numbers, and JDB keeps on doing the thing at front rower, which is amazing for owners of Jack DeBellin. Weirdly, Liam Henry's playing on an edge with Tyrone Peachey probably spell him after a while. I've heard a lot of Preston Reiki, but I don't know what he'll do. Maverick Guy is also usually an edge player, so does he play through the middle this time, or does he play an edge? Really weird, but I guess they're just in trouble. Look, one thing I called out, Jack Cole did a hammy accordingly, or I should say according to NRL physio. Now, we all know with all the hammies going on this season, we're all well and truly aware that hammies are not a 1 week thing. And if they are, that's really risky and trepidatious. So my assumption here is that, and also Brad Schneider's come back early. Like, that's crazy. He was also meant to be out for 4 weeks. It's been 2. So Penrith are obviously running the gauntlet a little bit. Schneider, look, I don't know, does he just tape it up and get through the game? I have to play him in my league, but that's fine. What I'm thinking could happen here is Jack Cole gets given up to the final hour to play with a hammy. Look, he might play. If he doesn't, I expect Laurie to go into the 6th. It could be Peachy, but I expect it potentially Laurie. And then I think Isaiah Iongi comes in at fullback because they love him, and I think he's a gun on the up and up. That could be a late switch. So yeah, if you're relying on Cole or Laurie, be cautious. Tungo owners, I think this could be a week for you guys. I just expect with Schneider back on the right edge, if he does in fact play there, which I assume he will, feeding Tungo against this absolute schmozzle of a Dragons back line. Like, that's crazy stuff. The Figai brothers, mate, they're gonna, I don't know who Sione Finau is, and I'm not that interested in getting to know him. So yeah, pretty hectic. Eisenhuth, yeah, that's awesome. He's playing a lock. Yeah, in your CTW, you'll fire him up. Yeah, Jacob Little was the big call out for me for sure. Scotty Sorensen retains a spot. Don't know where. Who the other Luke Garner? I don't know where he's gone. Apparently injury, according to NRL Fizz. He didn't actually. It was actually according to a different person, but yeah, apparently he's injured. So Scott Sorensen owners, you're gonna be happy here, but just be cautious that I think that timeshare could return potentially with Garner down the line. That's really all. Lindsay Smith, fire him up in your front row playing lock. I'm sure he'll get through a bunch of work. He was showing massive Isaiah Yeo signs on the weekend in the replay I saw when he scored his try. He's super fit. It looks like Lindsay Smith. He's got the same sort of body type. Yeah, he looks like a workhorse, and I think he's the guy that they're sort of developing to be that Isaiah Yeo 2.0 down the line is my guess there, watching him. Next game, Trey Fuller comes in for Hammer. That's really the only notable thing. It's funny because they're basically full strength, the Dolphins, and I guess so are the Raiders here, apart from Hudson Young, who I dislike immensely. KO Weeks keeps on keeping on. I've mentioned him in some of my posts on Twitter and in last week, and I think he's actually shown quite a bit. So he's definitely a waiver. I've got him this week. Like, if you're needy in that spot, he will do a job for you. What else is there? Corneli Lemuelu finally gets that starting spot on paper, which he was coming in for. So yeah, he's definitely a waiver. Look, with Corneli, I love him. I had him last year. I thought I loved what I saw. I just think owners or people making decisions around Corneli as a waiver or dropping someone, two things. The knee issues were around last year and they may persist. The HIAs were a thing last year. He just confined himself an early game. Like, he can find himself a HIA or an injury. So, like, if you're making a decision between someone that's really reliable and Corneli, stick with the reliability, because I think Corneli's upside, I think it's balanced by his unreliability, and that's just me being pessimistic. But just bear it in mind, guys. Like he's sort of injury prone, HIA type of guy. Like that's just my experience after owning him last year, and obviously he was late this year with the MCL PCL sort of situation with his knees. So that's my commentary on that one. Nothing else really jumps out to me. I don't believe. Does Simi Sasagi come in for Mariota? I don't know. I don't trust the Raiders. But yeah, fire up all your boys in this. If you're looking for a plug, Trey Fuller at fullback, absolutely will do a job for you. Moving on. Interesting one because the Roosters are sort of stacked too. So yeah, it could be trouble for the Cowboys. There's that back line looks pretty questionable just in terms of new combinations. So I think Palnger, I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name, but the centre for the Roosters, he's done a job every time sort of this year, and I think he's an awesome plug and play this weekend while Suali's off at Origin because he's running it this sort of these newly formed combinations at the Cowboys. I don't know who wins that long term, Vilea or Chester. That remains to be seen. But Vilea's he's been doing a good job there. He's got a fair bit of base there. Jake Clifford comes in. He's a fine plug and play in a really, really deep league, and Braden Burns on the dominant right edge. But, against this Roosters team, like, are you really wanting to rely on a plug and play Braden Burns when you could play Punga? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. Burns looked good in game one, but he's also a walking, like he's put together by plaster and paper mache. So just be cautious with Braden Burns if you're in a really tight matchup. Thomas McKaylee, just a shout out. He's just one for the black book, guys. Like maybe if he proves himself in this game or as the year goes on or in the off season, I think he's one to stash late. He's giving massive Terrell May vibes. Like he's an offloading freak, huge body, can't be tackled, like runs hard. Like he's a real skilled player. Didn't show a lot at the Tigers for mine, but yeah, he's come into sort of his own in that preseason stuff and looking super fit. So yeah, one to sort of monitor down the line. Thomas McKaylee for us SuperCoach degenerates. Naf White, big name, the biggest name throughout the week. From what I saw, the fact he played those minutes, looked that good, did what he did. Is this his spot? And in SuperCoach, he's front rower eligible. That is amazing. If you can have a lock in your front rower at this point in the season, that's crazy. And look, I just don't trust this to last with what's his face, the coach there, Trent Robinson. Like, I don't know what's going on, but if you're looking for a punt and forwards and front rowers have been a headache for you, you just go for Naf White and you hope. Terrell May owners such as myself, we're frothing that he gets a start. Like, don't really care what the minutes are. Just even if it's just anything above 40 minutes, I'm frothing. Love that in a bye week. Like, he could change the matchup for you. Love that with Terrell May, and that's why I did hold him for this period. But yeah, Naf White, he's a guy. He's a massive guy this week for a waiver. If you're like, I don't love wavering for front rowers. We've said it before. I've been banging the Fino drum and he finally delivered. So if you've been listening to me and thinking this guy's a fucking idiot, which is totally fair, and then you saw Fino actually get some upside and you go, oh, wait a minute, that was what it was about. Finally a game where he wasn't affected by some random stuff, like he delivered. I don't think he'll do that all the time, but in tight draft leagues when you can get a 80-minute back rower, in theory, in your front row, it's absolutely clutch. So if you can get a 60-minute plus lock in your front row and Naf White here, mate, laughing. Like the potential here is sick. So love that. Get on that. If you've got the appetite for it, obviously, because there's a bit of risk involved with that one. Scott Drinkwater owners, you going for it in a bye week. Teddy owners like myself, we're absolutely going for it. As I said, Panga, plug him in and go. Nothing else really jumps out worth mentioning that one. Questions. We do have some questions, so I appreciate everyone sending in your questions, guys. Just got them over here. Just before I do that, if you are looking to not listen to the questions, let me just pump out my waiver pickup. So at the top here, I've got KO Weeks as a sort of 5/8 just due to the dearth of sort of talent there. If he's halfback, I apologize. I believe it's 5/8 fullback, so that'll do it. That'll be handy. Toby Sexton, halfback. Yep, I think he's a little more of a speculative one. Like, does he hold the spot for the rest of the season? I don't know. But if you're halfback needy, we've seen what he can do, and the Dogs are looking really good, which is another big part of the Bulldogs as like a sort of waiver free agency adds is that the team themselves, they've got a good finals run and they're looking a bit better. Tyron Wishart, he should be owned, but if not, I need to call it out for people that, missed the boat or aren't sure. I think he'll do a job. We saw that on the weekend. He's just sort of a super coach player, I guess. Paul Alamotti needs to be owned. He's got the job and he showed that running and that scoring upside this week after everyone panic dropped him last week. So, yeah, guys, I think Taylor May wasn't it wasn't really like a true reflection of how good it is to how good a solid backline player can be in Penrith. Like Taylor May, I think he was new to the centre position and maybe he wasn't just wasn't quite big enough. Even though he put in a lot of effort, just wasn't quite big or skilled enough at that type of running. He was a sort of a winger by trade originally, wasn't he? So yeah, Paul Alamotti, if he's there, grab him for sure. Get a slice of that Penrith backline. I mean, it's not great without the halves there, but it's only a few weeks, and then they should be rolling. Jacob Little, I've already mentioned, so go back and listen to that one. But again, there's a bit of risk there, but not. I think at this point in the season, getting a hooker like him with a bit of upside is tasty, so get around that. Fainu Samuela from the Tigers, he is on bye this week, but I'm keeping him here on my list. He may still be available in some leagues due to how, some leagues just they're not that competitive perhaps, and he wasn't scoring that great. Maybe he got dropped. Get back on him for a front rower. Naf White, riskier than Fainu, but potentially better PPM, and also in that Roosters team, they have good buyer coverage. So I think Naf White is a really fun punt if people are looking for that. Caneli Lemuelu, I've mentioned, I think, he's got a bit of risk attached to him, but we've seen what he can do. He's great third, fourth to RF. I mean, as a matchup to RF, right? Like on your bench, if you're into that, bring him in when it suits. You don't have to play him. That's when Canelli's at his best, I reckon. Bo Fermor, I've mentioned, he'd be owned, I reckon, but if not, man, you got what he did at centre. I think he's warming back into it. I think the conditioning is there now for Bo after sort of the start of the season, and just the Titans are looking much better, which, to Dez's credit, his system's starting to sort of trickle into the heads of the team there. Bryce Cartwright, I've mentioned. Bronson Cherry, I mention every week. Just get a slice of that Bulldogs left edge. I think without Kickout, they'll be a little bit affected, but Preston's a good player and Cherry's got that spot. So get a slice of it if you're needy or looking for that fifth or sixth centre winger, perhaps. Bailey Simpson, I mentioned. Look, I think he was like solid this weekend. I can't remember. Maybe he wasn't. I need to check, but he's just worth mentioning as a guy who has upside and has solid base most of the time. Corey Jensen, really good plug when he's back on deck after the bye this weekend. I think he's just been plugging away in a pretty dire position. Lindsay Smith, I mentioned, if he's not owned, get onto him. Jack Cogger will do a job this weekend in the bye weekend. Vilea, solid base at CT Dubs. Haven't really seen the ceiling yet, but he's perfect for a plug. Sorensen, there's a bit of risk there with the job security, but you've got to have a slice of that Penrith side, I reckon. Maybe this weekend, I don't know how much ball he gets, but, going forward, get a bit of it. Alex Twal, he did a little bit there when he was playing a bit of lock for a front rower. He's one to monitor for really deep leagues. Brendan Hands playing potentially 80 at hooker, which that Eels team and bench, I don't understand it. So it's fraught with risk, but in your really deep leagues, if you're stuck for hooker, grab Brendan Hands. And just hope. I mean, he won't do much. He's not that good, but got to call it out. Trindle, good plug-in, and Punga, great plug-in at the Roosters CT Dubs. So let's get to these questions. I need to have a sip of water because I'm old. So first question here. 10-team league, finals 24 to 26. Don't know how that works. So you got one less week. Don't know why that is the case, but fair enough. Looking for options to move on from Blore. Munster's out. Yep. And some other good options, I guess he's saying, are available. I have KPP, Lucas, Elliott, Frizzell, Preston, Salmon, and a few others. Just wondering if you think it is worth making a move. I'm 7-5 now and tied second place with 5 other guys. So I'm just hearing a really tight league. Everyone's on 7-5, I'm hearing. That's crazy, but good on you being there in the mix. That's what matters. I'm just a bit confused with your question in regards to you saying you have KPP, Lucas, Elliott, Frizzell. I'm assuming they're the guys on the waivers, because I don't know how you'd have all those 2RFs. Look, I know Blore, it's a letdown with Munster out, and I know he's been playing. I know he had a bad week and whatnot. I own him, and I'm also looking at moving on from him because if he doesn't offload and doesn't get some sort of like line break assist, then yeah, the base isn't there of some of these other names. I totally understand. So look, it's hard. I'd honestly say probably Lucas at the moment would be the front runner. I say that because when KBP's minutes were getting mucked around, Lucas's weren't. Lucas, I think, has the priority over KPP at the Knights in the short term. So I think he's my number one and closely followed by KPP. They both have really good base, like really good work rates, I think. Lucas, I think because he's a little more established, he tends to be getting maybe better ball in better situations. But KPP just has X factor. I love it. I really like him. Potentially after the break as well, he'll be a bit enthused. Has he built a bit more chemistry on that left side with Hastings? Is there something there? I don't know. I like them both. And then I think you can't go past Preston, right? Like he's got that spot now. He'll probably play 80. He's a beast too. Like, but because it's probably not long term for Preston, that's why I've got the Knights boys there. But you can't go wrong. Preston, look, the Dogs are probably better than the Knights at this juncture too, without KP there. So by all means, take your pick out of Preston and Lucas, and I think KPP is just a smidge beneath them out of a job security perspective, and I could be totally wrong there, but I just want to be realistic that Frizzell's still there. He's still the most experienced guy. Once that hammy's healthy, does he go back on an edge and they run KPP through the middle? Like I don't know what O'Brien thinks of him after those 2 games where he didn't really start or whatever it was, KPP, where his minutes weren't, or like he played 40 minutes and then the other game he like came in at a late swap. So I'm just a bit nervous because it's upsetting as an owner. Hope that helps you. I know it's tough, but yeah, add another question if you want to clarify like who you own and who's on waivers. That might help. Also, I don't think holding Blore is a mistake either. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there is many worse 2RS than Sean Blore. Like, he's got upside in him in the sense of he can create, right? Like, that's really important. We've seen like line breaks and whatnot from him. And he's in a good team. And I know Munster's not there, but Wishart isn't a punk. Like, I get you totally, but don't freak out. Don't freak out. Just look ahead. The Storm are a good team. They do have a good finals run, which is part of the reason I was happy to jump on Blore myself. We're looking ahead and you're in the mix, mate. So yeah, keep that in mind. All right, next question. 1, hold Connor Watson. Look, given where you are on the ladder and stuff, I think you've got to hold him. He could be out for 3 weeks, but he could be out for longer. So just keep that in mind. But the PPM, I think the team and Trent love him. They look sick when he's there. He's a hold for sure. It just depends on how desperate your other situations or your other fires are to put out. But he's the type of guy, you drop him and he's done that type of scoring, he'll get snatched up and you might rue that later on. I'd be holding him. 2, White or Finu rest of the season? Well, I sort of touched on that in a way that's really hectic. I think it's Finu due to security. I think Finu, even when Bateman and Papali'i's back, I think he probably is good to run 80 minutes on an edge. Whereas White, we really don't know. The Roosters swap and change all the time. We really don't know. It'd only take a couple of losses for Trent Robinson to throw that White experiment away. But it's really close because what White can do is pretty sick. But it's Finu for me. Short term, it's White. Long term, I think it's Finu in FRF. But yeah, it's sort of nasty business trying to explain or predict that one. Lastly, sitting first, would you trade Hughes and Ramian for Nathan Cleary? What a question. Fuck me dead. That's crazy. I own Cleary. I wouldn't take Hughes and Ramian because in my mind, at this juncture, there's enough halfback talent that I reckon, depending on the league and whatnot, that I reckon I can get through to that next return for Cleary and see if he's got enough to be healthy. Because if he does, I can win the league. Cleary can win the league. Now, if I'm the Hughes and Ramian owner, I've seen Hughes come back and be healthy and run the show at the Storm. They've got a good finals run. Ramian plays outside Nico Hines when healthy in what is currently the best team in the comp, more or less, the Sharks. I think the answer to this lies in sort of going like, well, how well positioned are you to weather the time without Cleary? There's a couple points to this, right? Cleary could be gone for even more time than he currently is, but that doesn't matter if you're sitting first and you have a good person to plug in. Like I've got Brad Schneider and I've got Dylan Brown. Cleary can take 14 weeks, and that's what I expect to happen. They're not going to rush him back. They're going to get that thing as tight and as ready as they can. The risk being he could still have an issue with that hammy game 1 to 3, 4, 5 coming back into finals. I think if you're sitting first and your team's good enough, you should just be running Hughes and Rami because you're obviously winning in first. There's a world Cleary comes back, plays a couple of games, you think you've hit the lottery, and the hammy goes again in finals, i.e. leaving you potentially without a halfback, or leaving the game early, leaving you with a dead score from potentially your captain in my instance. The risk is insane with Cleary now that he's had 2 in the 1 year, and he's apparently listening to NRL physio the other night. He's still feeling pain in the rehab process during exercises, which after 2 weeks is apparently a big red flag. So, mate, I would be keeping Hughes and Rami in. But hey, if you've got Brad Schneider or you've got, I don't know, some other halfback that you think can do a job for you in the finals of SuperCoach, I mean, you could go for it, but I would be holding Hughes and Rami in, I think, mate, because also the Storm have a strong finals run themselves and they're a good team, and Hughes will be running that show if Munster keeps struggling. We don't know what Munster is. A lot to that, but yeah, mate, unfortunately, I'd be keeping Hughes and Rami. I know it's not the fun answer you want to hear, because we always want to take the gamble because that's the thrill, right? The hope. SuperCoach is addictive because we always look toward the next weekend, hoping things change, hoping this happens, hoping we make that decision right. Like, that's why it's addictive. It's that hope and that reward that comes from making decisions and gambles that pays off some of the time. So sorry to let you down, mate. Yeah, and I could be totally wrong, so I hope I don't cost you a season, but it sounds like if you're first with those boys, keep running, mate. What I would be doing is trying to get Nico Hines, possibly. That's less risky, and the owner might be freaking out through Origin. That's a better one, potentially. Anyway, thanks, guys. I don't want to stick... I've already gone over time because of the questions, but I got to all the waiver stuff earlier. Hopefully I didn't go on too many tangents that bored you guys out. I'm a little bit spacey Jane today, unfortunately. And I'll be back with the matchups tomorrow or Thursday morning. Hopefully you can give this video a like, sub if you don't already, which I'm sure you do, or sub on your alternative account. I know with draft content you can't share it with your friends because then you're showing them where you get your insights, but any support is much appreciated. Thanks, guys, and see you tomorrow, and see you in the Discord team if you're in there participating. Peace. Thanks.